What if I told you that all the time, money and effort you spend making your lure look absolutely flawless is the exact reason you're not getting bit? It sounds crazy, right? We're taught to buy the shiniest lures, to rig our plastics perfectly straight, to keep everything looking pristine. But today, we're going to challenge that. We're going to explore the idea that your presentation might be too perfect, and it's actually scaring the fish away. By the end of this video, you will understand why a little bit of wrong can be exactly what you need to be right. This is the secret that separates good anglers from great ones. So, I have to ask you, and be honest, do you believe a beat-up scratched lure can outfish a brand new one straight out of the package? Let me know in the comments, and let's get into it. For years, the fishing industry has sold us on the idea of perfection. Look at any tackle catalog. The lures are gleaming. The paint jobs are immaculate, designed to be a perfect replica of a shiner, a bluegill, or a crawfish. As anglers, we buy into this. We spend our hard-earned money on these beautiful lures, and naturally, we want to keep them that way. It's an ingrained habit. We meticulously rig our baits, we clean them after every trip, and we cringe when a crankbait gets a deep scratch from a rock. We've been conditioned to believe that a perfect imitation is the key to success. We think that if our lure looks exactly like the real thing, a fish will have no choice but to eat it. But this line of thinking overlooks one critical, fundamental truth about the natural world. Nature itself is never perfect. Let's first talk about what I call the uncanny valley of lures. You've heard of this concept with robots or computer graphics. It's when something looks almost perfectly human, but just a little bit off, and it makes you feel uneasy. Fish experience a version of this too. A lure that swims with perfect robotic rhythm and has a flawless, uniform finish doesn't look natural. It looks suspicious. A real bait fish has tiny imperfections. It has scars, maybe a slightly torn fin. It moves with subtle, unpredictable twitches. When a savvy old bass or a wary trout sees something that is too perfect, it sets off an alarm. It's too clean, too neat, too predictable. This is especially true in waters that see a lot of fishing pressure, where fish have learned to associate these perfect objects with danger. Now let's consider the most powerful trigger for a predator: the appearance of an easy meal. Think about how a lion hunts on the savannah. Does it go after the strongest, fastest, healthiest zebra in the herd? No. It singles out the one that is limping, the one that is old, young, or sick. Fish are no different. They are opportunistic predators, hardwired to conserve energy. A perfectly healthy bait fish, swimming in a perfectly straight line, is a difficult target. But a bait fish that is struggling, one that is twitching erratically, one that has a slight wobble because it's injured, that is a dinner bell. A lure with a perfect presentation mimics the healthy zebra. A lure with a little bit of imperfection, a slight flaw in its action, mimics the easy injured meal that a predator simply cannot resist. I want you to take a moment and really visualize the world underwater. It is not a sterile, clean environment. The bait fish that predators feed on are not fresh off an assembly line. They have lived a life. They have nicks and scrapes from bumping into rocks and logs. They might have a few missing scales from a previous close call with a predator. Their coloration is not always uniform. The water itself has algae and sediment that clings to things. Perfection is a human concept. In nature, imperfection is the norm, so when we present a lure that is pristine with a glossy clear coat and a factory-perfect paint job, it stands out against the natural backdrop in a way that can be alarming to fish. It doesn't blend in, it screams artificial. This next point is absolutely crucial for anyone who fishes popular lakes or rivers. We have to talk about pressured fish. These are fish that have been caught and released, or have seen dozens, if not hundreds, of different lures dragged past their faces. They are educated, they have a PhD in telling what's real and what's fake. On a Saturday at a busy boat ramp, how many other anglers are throwing that same popular, perfectly made swim bait or crankbait? The fish see it over and over. They learn to associate that perfect wobble and that perfect silhouette with a hook. A lure that is slightly different, one that is scuffed up, one with a slightly altered action, breaks that pattern. It's something they haven't seen before, and that curiosity can be the very thing that triggers a strike. So let's get specific and talk about one of the most common mistakes. using a lure that is too pristine. We've all done it. You buy a brand new, expensive jerkbait. You tie it on and you're almost afraid to cast it near a dock piling or a rocky bottom because you don't want to scratch it. But that mirror-like finish, while it looks great to us, can create an unnatural flash underwater. It doesn't look like the muted, subtle sheen of real scales. A lure that has some of its paint worn off with some dull spots and some scratches actually has a much more natural, broken-up profile in the water. It reflects light in a more chaotic, realistic way. Think of it like camouflage. A perfect solid pattern is easy to spot. A broken-up, irregular pattern blends in. Now, let's move on to soft plastics. This is an area where perfectionism runs rampant. How many minutes have you spent trying to thread a senko or a creature bait onto a hook so that it is absolutely, perfectly straight? We obsess over it, thinking that if it's even a millimeter off, it won't work. But I'm telling you to stop. A slightly askew soft plastic often has a much more dynamic and enticing action. When it's rigged just a little bit crooked, it will have a subtle corkscrew or a slight wobble on the fall that a perfectly straight bait just can't replicate. That little bit of extra unpredictable movement is exactly the kind of thing that makes a base's lateral line go crazy. It mimics a disoriented or dying baitfish. Another subtle but critical mistake is an overly clean line and leader. Anglers, especially those chasing line-shy species like trout or finicky bass, will often use a brand new, perfectly clear fluorocarbon leader. While it's true that fluorocarbon is less visible, a brand new leader straight off the spool can still be quite stiff and can catch the light in a certain way. An older leader, one that's been used a few times, gets slightly scuffed and abraded. This actually diffuses the light better, making it even less visible. Furthermore, a slightly used leader is often a bit more limp, allowing for a more natural action from your lure. Don't be so quick to cut off and retie a new leader just because it's not crystal clear anymore. A little wear and tear can be your friend. Let's talk about your retrieve. This is a huge one. Many anglers develop a very rhythmic, consistent retrieve. Cast, turn the handle, pause. Cast, turn the handle, pause. It becomes a metronome. It is predictable, and predictable is artificial. A real crawfish doesn't scurry across the bottom in perfect 1-second intervals. A real minnow doesn't swim at a constant speed. They dart, they stop, they twitch, they panic, they float for a moment. Your retrieve needs to reflect this chaos. Break your rhythm, speed up your reeling for a few feet, then stop it dead. Give it a sharp, unexpected twitch. Let it sit on the bottom for an uncomfortably long time. This is how you transform your lure from a piece of plastic into a living, breathing creature in the fish's eyes. This one is for the jig fishermen out there. You get a new jig, and the skirt is perfect. All the strands are the same length, perfectly arranged. It looks great in the package, but underwater, that perfect skirt can sometimes mat together and lack action. Here's a pro tip. Take that new jig and mess it up a little. Pluck out a few random strands of the skirt. Trim some of the strands a half-inch shorter than the others. This does two things. First, it creates a more subtle, natural, and less bulky profile. Second, and more importantly, the different lengths of the strands cause the skirt to flare and pulsate much more dynamically in the water with every little twitch of your rod. It looks more alive. Think about the flawless paint job on that expensive crankbait you own. It's a perfect representation of a perch. But when a real perch gets attacked, what happens? It might get scraped, it might start bleeding. A lure with some paint chipped off, revealing the base plastic underneath, creates a point of contrast. A Sharpie marker can be your best friend here. Add a black dot where an eye should be, if the original is gone. Add a splash of red near the gills to simulate an injury. This isn't about vandalism. It's about enhancement. You are breaking up the perfect, factory-made silhouette and creating a focal point, a target, that a predator fish can lock onto. You're giving the lure a story. So, how do we put this into practice? Let's start with your hard baits. It's time to get over the fear of that first scratch. In fact, I encourage you to add them intentionally. Before you even tie on a new crankbait or jerkbait, take a small piece of fine grit sandpaper and lightly scuff up the sides. You don't need to destroy it. Just knock off that super high gloss. Another trick is to just throw it in a utility box with a few other lures and shake it around a little bit. Let them bang into each other. You want to create those subtle imperfections that will break up its profile and make it flash more naturally underwater. A beat-up lure is a battle-tested lure, and the fish know it. Now let's go back to soft plastics, because this is where you can see results, almost instantly. The next time you're rigging up a creature bait or a stick bait on a Texas rig or a wacky rig, do it on purpose, but make it just a little bit imperfect. When you insert the hook point, maybe push it through 1 or 2 millimeters off center. Just enough so that the bait doesn't hang perfectly straight. Then, cast it out and watch it on the fall. You'll see it has a subtle, tantalizing shimmy or a slow corkscrew that you just can't get with a perfectly straight rig. That little bit of imperfection is what triggers strikes from fish that have seen 1,000 perfectly rigged plastics fall past their face. We can also physically modify our lures to change their action. This is where you can get really creative. Take a pair of pliers and ever so slightly bend the bill of a crankbait, either up, down, or to the side. A tiny adjustment can completely change its wobble, making it hunt erratically from side to side instead of swimming in a straight line. With a soft plastic swim bait, you can take a pair of scissors and trim one side of the paddle tail a little bit, giving it an uneven kick. These small modifications create a unique action that fish in your local waters have likely never seen before. It presents them with something new and unpredictable, which often leads to a reaction strike. This next one requires a mental shift. We need to stop thinking that a lure is ruined after a fish chews on it. That used look is a badge of honor, and it's productive. When a base chomps down on a soft plastic and puts a tear in it, don't immediately reach for a new one. That tear can act like a hinge, giving the bait extra action. A jig skirt that has been thinned out by a few toothy pike is often more effective than a brand new one. The same goes for a topwater plug with teeth marks all over it. Those scratches and gouges add character and break up the silhouette. Embrace the damage. Those battle scars are proof that your lure works, and they often make it work even better. Let's talk about doctoring your lures with color. As I mentioned before, markers can be your secret weapon. Carry a few permanent markers in your bag. A black one, a red one, and maybe a chartreuse one. If you're fishing in stained water, you can add some chartreuse to the tail of your soft plastic to make it pop. If you notice the bait fish have prominent vertical bars, you can draw some onto the side of your crankbait with a black marker. And the red marker is a classic for a reason. Adding a touch of red around the gills or on the belly of a lure is a time-tested way to simulate injury and create a trigger point. It's about customizing your lure for the specific conditions of the day, making it just a little different from everyone else's. Ultimately, the most important tool for creating productive imperfection is your retrieve. You can have the most beat-up, modified lure in the world, but if you reel it in like a robot, it will still look fake. You have to be the one to breathe life into it. Imagine you are that bait fish. You're swimming along, then you get spooked by a shadow. What do? You dart away quickly. So, give your rod a sharp rip. Then, maybe you think the coast is clear, so you stop and rest. So, let your lure pause and sink. Be unpredictable. Your retrieve should tell a story of a creature that is trying to survive, not a piece of hardware being dragged through the water. This is what truly separates the pros from the average angler. Let me paint a picture for you. It's a calm morning on the lake. The water is clear. You make a perfect cast with a beautiful, expensive swim bait right along a weed edge. You see a big shadow emerge from the weeds. A huge bass is following your lure. It gets closer and closer. And then, at the last second, it just peels off and swims away. We have all been there. It is one of the most frustrating moments in fishing. Why did it do that? In that clear water, it got a good long look at your lure. It saw the perfect rhythmic tail kick. It saw the glossy uniform paint, and its instincts told it that something was not quite right. That is the moment where an imperfect presentation would have sealed the deal. This concept isn't just limited to bass fishing with conventional tackle. Think about the world of fly fishing. The most experienced fly tiers will tell you that the most effective flies are often not the perfectly symmetrical ones that you see in a display case. They are the buggy ones. They have a stray piece of hackle sticking out. The legs aren't perfectly even. The body is a bit messy. These imperfections are what make the fly look alive in the current. They create the impression of movement and vulnerability. The principle is universal, whether you're chasing trout in a mountain stream with a fly or largemouth bass in a reservoir with a jig. Imperfection is a sign of life. Now, it's very important to understand that I'm not telling you to be sloppy. There is a huge difference between being intentionally imperfect and just being lazy. Your knots should still be strong. Your hooks should be sharp. Your gear should be well maintained. This is about making a conscious, strategic choice to break away from the mold of factory perfection. It's a higher level of thinking about angling. You are no longer just a person casting and retrieving. You are an artist, a storyteller, trying to create the most convincing illusion of a vulnerable, easy meal. It requires thought and purpose. It's a deliberate tactic, not a shortcut. So, here is your homework, the ultimate test. The next time you go out, I want you to conduct an experiment. Take your favorite go-to lure in your favorite color, but make sure you have two of them. One that is brand new, right out of the package, and one that is old, beat up, scratched, and maybe even has a slightly bent hook you've straightened out. Fish them back to back in the same area. Spend 15 minutes with the perfect one, then 15 minutes with the imperfect one. I am willing to bet that on many days, especially on pressured waters, that old, ugly, battle-scarred lure will get more attention. The results might just shock you, and they will make you a believer. So, let's bring it all home. We've talked about a lot today, but the core idea is simple. Perfection is often the enemy of success in fishing. Nature is flawed, and the most successful predators and anglers are the ones who understand how to exploit those flaws. The real aha moment, the big takeaway here, is that we should stop protecting our lures and start modifying them. We should intentionally introduce the very imperfections that we used to think were ruining them. This isn't just a tip, it's a fundamental shift in mindset. It's a new lens through which to see your entire tackle box and every cast you make. It will force you to be more creative, more observant, and ultimately, a more effective angler. Thank you so much for watching and for being open to a new idea. If this video made you think, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes against the grain. Now, I have one last question for you, and I really want to hear your stories. What's the ugliest, most beat-up lure in your tackle box that still catches fish time and time again? Describe it and tell me its story in the comments below. I'll see you on the water.